did he get so good? And let me tell you, it's because I spent more money than you. Alright?
My soul is tormented by a succubus. Calling sis, pencil dripping from the way I spit. Fell in love with this. Sis got music, now she in my grips. Wanna take a sip of her only sign says sips. No.
Alright, we're gonna start with the reason why the deck functions, and that is for XVR ORR Harmonic Messiah. This is the most important card in the deck, and it searches out any card you want as a locked card, and then when you attack, you can unlock and give plus 15. It's pretty standard stuff that it does, but it's why you play the deck. The next card I'm going to talk about is Ghastly Nail. I only play him at 3 because I like to run 10 3s, and I found he's too much. But secondly, it's because the other 3 I run is a better ride. Still, Ghastly Nail is your best rear guard. On attack, Soul Blast, call a card from your hand locked to draw a card, and he gets plus 5 for each lock card. He's going to be making your highest numbers, and he's what enables your multi-attack. He's pretty solid. I wouldn't run him at less than 3. Next card I'm going to talk about is Brant. Brant is incredibly important, I found, to the deck. You have maybe 1 or 2 other options you can run, but I've found that he's one of the strongest possible first rides. And even sitting on him, I've won a few games just by my opponent not being able to do anything and then hitting heals and dying. He enables you to play much more defensive and gets you to your late game where you actually win games with Harmonics. Whiteout I play at 1, just because I needed a little bit more space. He just forces more guard, and if they don't guard, he kills a card and draws, which is just solid. Lady Battler is another card like Whiteout, Ghastly Nail. She enables multi-attack, Soul Blast, and you discard a card, and then you call the top card of your deck locked, and then you draw. So she's slightly different because Ghastly Nail, you control what you call, and you can make it a lot stronger, whereas Lady Battler's more random. Difference is if you have no strong cards in your hand, Ghastly Nail is going to call a weak card regardless. Lady Battler can slightly high roll, but I found her to more often call out a trigger than an actual unit I wanted. That's why I don't run her at more than 2. The next card I run is Remarkable Verse Monk at 4. I really like him because he's Counterblast 1, reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a 3, you restand, but either way you add it to your hand. And he's really strong because he's restand, but at the same time Counterblast 1 to draw, it's just a good effect. Ultimately, you have the Counterblast that you can generally afford him, and restanding? It's restanding. It's how you win games. The last grade 2 is the unarguable Blast Monk of the Thundering Foot. Now, he's really good because before you ride grade 3 or even after, you can kill one of their grade 2 or highers and soul charge. And if you soul charge at 3, your Harmonics is online with its second ability. So if you get that, then you're just going to win games. I definitely won some games at Chicago just based on that. In terms of grade 1s, I run 2 1-ofs. One of them is Jet Shaft and the other is Duskblade. Jet Shaft forces an intercept for a Soul Blast, and he's really good against Excel clans, who are one of your bad matchups. But you can just search him off of Harmonics, which just helps you get out of it. And Duskblade, I just throw behind the Vanguard so that they actually have to guard his attacks. And he counterblasts and, on hit, draws and binds a unit. So that's just advantage. It's not that I felt that I needed more than that. I run Treasured Child of Magnetic Resonance, only at 3, because she can be a little clunky to use sometimes, but she can give you a soul in 10k, which is really helpful if you're early game when you play, since she gives you a bit of rushing power. And later on, that's where she gets more awkward to use, but 10k and a soul is still useful if they don't guard with a trigger. I run 3 Calderon Wing, because I found more to be clunkier. Ultimately, I'm very happy with the number, and I think this is what you should run. If you only have a 7k, then your columns become very awkward. But if you really need to find him, you can just search him off Harmonics. So you don't really need to see him. So there's no real reason to run him at 4. Final card is 4 Destiny Dealer. And this is just unarguable. It's your best ride. If you ride him, you call a card locked, and as a rear guard, you can Soul Blast 1 to call a card locked. Really, he's free advantage, and a great way to use Soul and to plus off of Harmonics. Finally is the grade 0s, where it's the very standard 8 crit, 4 draw, and 4 heal. And then I play Starhawk Blurry because he is the only starter who actually has a skill to be relevant, in that other cards rely on him to be in Soul.
Alright, so what about your matchups? What were your matchups like throughout the day?
Alright, we'll see if I can stop saying so while I go through this. My first matchup was against Narukami. I feel like he was just playing the deck as a filler before he got the new support. And he played alright, but, I mean, he did have a couple misplays, and I just kind of cruised through it. I was at 0 damage on my first grade 3 ride, so... My second match was against an OTT player. I went first, and I just kind of rushed him. Destiny Dealer called out a locked card, and I just kind of went for it, and he really just couldn't stand up to pressure before I got enough advantage. My third matchup was against the Police, and I lost this one. Ultimately, I was just 5k short. It was kind of an unlucky match, but my opponent played it well. Props to him. In round 4, I played against an Aqua player, and so the first 3 matches I all went first, and for the rest of the day I went second, except for top 8. So I went second against him, but I don't really remember too much about what happened. He did glory stuff, but I had 4 or 5 triggers in hand because I kept them for the glory turn, so I could just drop 15s on all his 27k attacks. So I survived at 5 damage and just killed him after.
So I'm assuming he wasn't playing with Blue Wings as well.
He did not have Blue Wings to my knowledge.
Okay.
Alright. Then we played Melody, and I feel like he and my next opponent, who was also Melody, both did the exact same misplay, where they wrote a Sonata the 3rd time, adding a 3rd Force 3, and I always felt that 3rd Force 3 never mattered.
Force 2?
No, Force 3, come on. It's a new effect. You'll get over it.
Yeah.
But you do Force 2 on a 3rd column, but a lot of the time it's just like a 10k column or something, and I felt an extra Sonata adding 5k to the board, which could be 20 or 30k power, is a lot more relevant. And that was round 5 and 6. They both did the same thing. Round 7, this is the round I felt bad. My opponent was from California. He was really cool. Sadly, he whiffed on Dieliner first, but I still perfect guarded. Ultimately, I just kind of got him, because Messiahs beats D-Police, it's just what happens. And round 8 is the round I absolutely stole it. I absolutely should not have won that game. Going second against Melody, my opponent was really good. I was at 1 card in hand when I went to my first grade 3, and I had Blast Monk, and I soul charged a grade 3 off of that, so my Harmonix Messiah could draw me cards and restand my board. And I avoided attacking 40k at his Vanguard, so he had 1 damage, but he used it. And I had 5 or 6 cards in hand. He emptied my whole hand, so now I'm at 0 cards in hand again. So if I did give him the damage, I would have died to his Sonata just calling something out. Then I top decked something, I think call it a Blast Monk. But I used Harmonix, I double crit him, and I called the restand, and I hit the restand off of Burst Monk. So I restood as 33k with 3 damage, and now he's at 4. And I drove check another crit, and he'd had 2 cards in hand, so he couldn't guard anyway. So he just died.
Ugh.
So that was under 4% for the crit, and for the soul charge the 3 and the restand, and then with the double crit, that was under 1% chance to win that game. It was disgusting. And I lost in top 8 to Neo Nectar, who I have to say my opponent played really well. Props to him. I did misplay in the end. There was a turn where I rode Brant second after I'd pushed him to 5, because I was playing it slightly slow. I thought he'd attack and I wanted to no-guard his Vanguard. And I guarded his rear guard so I could no-guard the Vanguard, since I didn't have the PG yet. And then he didn't swing with his Vanguard, which honestly blew me away, so I only had 1 damage going into my kill turn. And I pushed him, and I didn't kill his tomato, which I could have done. And then I miscounted his guard on his turn, where I perfect guarded his Vanguard instead of hard guarding it for 2 to pass. So he hit the crit, put it on tomato, and I couldn't guard it, and died.
Alright, so overall, this is your second top 8 in 2 years.
Woo.
Yay. And is there anything that you would want to change about this deck?
Yeah, I want to cut Magnetic Resonance, maybe down to a 1 or 2, and I want to put in some Balerothers, because he enables Force 2 a bit better. And ultimately, even if he doesn't, you put him behind Vanguard instead of Sunset Duskblade, and he makes the column 26 instead of 21, and that just no longer can you be one card 2 to pass. And it's really, you really don't want to have to 2 to pass, even though you're going to end up putting all effects on Vanguard a lot of the time, since you might not have a rear guard to put power on. So, I want to try Belrother again, and the other card I like is Envelop Panther, who is, if you have a locked card, Soul Blast 1 to give on attack, give 10k to him and your Vanguard. And he's another card that really enables Force 2. And I don't really know where I put him in. Maybe over Whiteout Vect, but Whiteout Vect's who I put him in over before the tournament. And Whiteout Vect I liked, so I probably don't run him.
Alright, so any shout-outs? Anybody you want to say hi to? Any special people?
Well, I need to shout out to you, because you were there for top 8. You were there for me. And I'll shout out to my boy Darren, because he also showed up for top 8. But no shout out to those other people who I went on the trip with, because they all ditched me, because they're loser crybabies. And I guess Miles can get a shout out this time because he wasn't there in Chicago, so it's not his fault.
He was there in spirit.
He wasn't. He sucks.
All right. Well then, ladies and gentlemen, and others.
And Tyler, he's important.
Yeah, Tyler's always important. But yeah.
Shout out to the food that I'm about to go eat. Cheers.
All right, later, guys.
Wait. And